Well, getting back on topic, we were talking about Durando's Listen to My Song, the Music City Sessions, which just came out a few weeks ago. And a few weeks from now, or whenever this podcast airs, there's going to be another Music City-related anthology, this time for the band Two Things in One.
Two things in one, I think, are amazing. This is I didn't have. I was always. It took me a long time to get a hold of Durando's record on Music City, but I had all three of the Two Things in One Music City releases for many years. 3 different 45s. Each one had an up-tempo funk tune on one side and a nice sort of modern ballad on the other. And I'm just wondering, who the hell are these guys? It sounds like Stevie Wonder jamming with, the Meters or something like that. It's just really just a great sound. And after I acquired the Music City, tapes on behalf of Ace and started going through them and found there was like with Durando, there was a lot of extra material by these guys, and it was all just really, really good. I got really, really curious, and in the meantime, my friend, I'm sure, was our mutual friend, Justin Torres.
Right.
He'd spoken with a couple of the members, principally Michael Jeffries, the lead singer, and so he put us in touch. And Justin and I had a great evening over here at my place in El Cerrito, where all five guys and the Two Things in One came over, and we just sat around and talked about the band for hours on end. And again, it was really interesting to find out. Principally, the thing that really shocked me was just how young these guys were when they recorded for Ray Dobar. They were literally, still not even in high school. They were still sort of in middle school, starting anyway. Some of them, and it was just blown away by how strong their chops were, both in the vocal and in the instrumental department. As well as their songwriting abilities at such a young age. They were all young fellows that knew each other from Richmond, literally just played in the garages, and they even made a record before they became Two Things in One. Some of the members were in a group called the Soul Distributors, who made a very, very rare record, One Step Beyond. That's on One Step Ahead. That's on the Rockway label.
Okay. Out
of Richmond. But they, just incredible players, and they had a real protege on the keyboards, a fellow called Kevin Burton, that just was like just a demon playing jazz B3. But all the members were good, and they had what was interesting about them also. I mean, there was a lot of similar youthful kind of rhythm and blues and soul groups around in the Bay Area at that time, but what was interesting about the Two Things in One is that they had a rock side to them, which came mostly from the guitarist Michael Griggs, who was a big fan of guitarists like Steve Howe and Randy California from Spirit and stuff, and he definitely brought a side to the band that you wouldn't normally hear in a group of young black guys doing funk. It was definitely kind of right in the pocket of the sort of funkadelic and some of Sly's heavier moments, where that rock influence was really interesting. I mean, certainly there were groups playing at the Fillmore and stuff like that had a rhythm blues and a rock influence combined, but actually come out of the Richmond, almost like the Chitlin circuit, so to speak, with that sound was kind of unique, and especially with the youth of the members involved. They're all like 15 or 16 when they did these recordings. And just great players. And Michael Jeffries, the singer, just had a wonderful elastic voice, sort of like Stevie Wonder. And of course, later on, people sought him out after the band split up, and he was a singer for Tower Power for several years in the 80s.
Did they precede the emergence of Confunction out of Vallejo?
I know that they knew them. They played a lot with them when Confunction was known as Project Soul.
Right.
I knew they were friendly. Might have even done some shows with them. They were certainly contemporaries.
Okay. You can really hear how, as you're just talking about, they fit into the various sort of music styles that are all flowing through the Bay Area around that time in the early 1970s. You mentioned they had 3 singles on Music City, but they never really blew up past the Bay, did they?
No. They got some good airplay on local R&B stations, principally KDIA, and that's mainly because their mentor / manager in their early days was Bob Jones, who was a DJ on KDIA. No, they really, I think, they got airplay locally, but maybe partly because of Dobart and his business practices and his relationships. They didn't really get outside of the Bay Area. They certainly didn't perform much outside of the Bay Area. Although when they were very, very young, even before they met Ray Dobart, they went down to LA to try and sort of push themselves, and get a deal, try and be the next Ponderosa Twins or Jackson 5 or whatever. But I think what happened was that when they decided to leave Dobart, that's when they decided to go to LA and really make a grab for the brass ring, and they changed their name to Sky and spent a lot of time down there and actually put out a record in 1976, which is pretty good. Although it doesn't quite have the sort of just the joyous vibe that the Two Things in One's recordings do.
Is that Sky spelled
SKYE? Yes.
And what was the single they put out?
I believe the title escapes. I think it was Ain't No Way. I think the title was on the Anada label. ANADA.
Wait, okay, we got to pause here because that is one of my all-time favorite disco singles ever recorded. So you're telling me that was a later iteration?
That's correct, yeah. It's not exactly the same lineup, but it's pretty close.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, get this, Oliver. The guys tell me that they recorded a whole album at that time, too. Kevin Beamish was a producer. They did a whole bunch of stuff down there, which who knows where that stuff's ended up, but, that's another kind of holy grail to look for,
Right. Well, you know what? We got to play the Sky in the podcast right here. We're listening to Sky's Ain't No Need, which came out in '76, and this band was a later iteration of the Two Things in One, which originally was from the Bay Area. And we're talking about Together Forever, the Music City sessions, here with the reissue producer or anthology producer, Alec Palau from the Bay Area. Let's actually take a listen to one of the songs that the Two Things in One, the Two Things in One recorded for Music City. This is the title track of the new comp called Together Forever.
Gotta have you all the time, but most
The track listing of this anthology I thought was really fascinating because besides their own material, the group's also covering Isaac Hayes' version of Walk On By, Stevie Wonder's I Was Made to Love Her, and perhaps least expected, a Crosby, Stills and Nash song, Ohio. I think you got a chance to talk to these guys. How did they end up choosing to cover, a Crosby, Stills and Nash song and an Allman Brothers song?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of that was to do with the guitarist Michael Griggs, who's a big rock fan. He's kind of been inspired to play guitar by the Beatles and stuff, and just was always had that that interest in that side of music. I think definitely he's the one who brought those sort of songs to the band. Although I will also mention that they were probably listening to the Isleys version of Ohio. That might have given them an idea because obviously, as you mentioned, they kind of follow Isaac Hayes' template for Walk On By. Right. But they definitely the thing that blew me away about the rock influence was how, even though Michael Griggs was bringing it to the band, the other members kind of responded to it, particularly Kevin Burton, the keyboard player, who was also the principal songwriter. So, literally their first demo session in May of 1971, they're doing a tune like You're No Good that Kevin wrote that's like, could easily be off the first, couple of Funkadelic records or something. It's this real hard-edge sort of rock-funk blend, very, very unusual, just within the Bay Area even. I think, there's definitely, I mean, obviously, that time in music in the early 70s was about the most open-minded that black music ever got, really, I think. In that, it would allow these sort of other influences to really come in and just create this, it's a real kind of a renaissance period, I think, for rhythm and blues and soul, and so I think, two things in one are just totally symptomatic of that, very open-minded and just like magpies, just picking from whatever they liked to kind of create their sound.
In finishing up here, what else can we expect from the Music City Vaults to emerge over the next months or years?
Well, there's a lot of material is planned. Actually, Ace Records will be putting out, probably several volumes of doo-wop, vocal groups, rock and roll, blues, and some more, 60s soul material. All of these, basically Music City material is my baby, so I'll be assembling all of these. But also, both the Dorondo and the Two Things in One have been put out by the Omnivore label in United States, and I'm planning to do some vinyl-only compilations of the more gritty street funk that's in the Music City Vaults, exclusively for Omnivore. So that's something we can look forward to next year. But there's, I have to tell you, Oliver, it was basically a best part, a year and a half of my life going through, 1,500 reels of tape, that was in the Music City Vault, because I do all my own transfers and editing of this material, as well as researching and everything like that. So I probably listen to more Music City music than anyone except Ray Dobat himself. Right. And as I mentioned before, some of it is pretty rough, but a lot of it is just utterly compelling. It's really like you got a little sort of like a audio verite glimpse into what was going on in black music in the 50s and 60s and 70s. On a real community level, as opposed to like something being controlled by producers or record labels or what have you. And that, to me, is just like, worth its weight in gold. You don't, as a reissue producer and archivist, I don't get an opportunity to really have something like the breadth of sort of a label and a studio's work, available all in one place, like I have with the Music City stuff.